Welcome to the ReGen Brands Podcast. This is a place for brands, retailers, investors, and other food system stakeholders to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
In this episode, Kyle and I are flying solo to cover the latest and greatest from the world of regenerative CPG. We kick things off with Kyle sharing some insights from recent conversations he's had with retailers, and we unpack recent changes Whole Foods has made to their regenerative standards. We break down all the things Expo West, including regenerative brands exhibiting, sessions we're looking forward to, NEXTY finalists, where you can find ReGen on the agenda, and how ReGen Brands is showing up at the event. Secret sneak peek, we're launching our first awareness campaign for the ReGen Brands Coalition, member brands and products. So be sure to check that out and listen to the full episode for more details. We touch on the early effects of the new federal administration change, specifically the current federal funding freeze that is bringing chaos to the food and ag community at large, especially for those with contracts created via Biden-Harris programs and legislation like Climate Smart Commodities, the Inflation Reduction Act, and Organic Market Development Grants. We close things out with some fun and good news for the regenerative movement, which you'll find at the very end of the episode. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it, and let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the ReGen Brands Podcast. I cannot even get through our normal intro because Kyle's already laughing at me, which is not surprising.
That was a longer pause than usual. AC, he presses record and then he takes a breath. And then he does the "What's up" with everybody, and it's in my mind there's a specific cadence. And today's pause was twice as long as usual, so I was really on the edge of my seat here, waiting for it.
As our listeners can probably already tell, we do not have a guest today, just Kyle and I. And this episode is going to be on the fly, in air quotes, I would say. This is one of the busiest times of the year for all CPG people as we're gearing up for Expo West, which kicks off in less than 14 days here. Both Kyle and myself have a lot going on individually and also collectively in the ReGen Brands universe and ecosystem. So there's a lot to talk about, but we're throwing this one together at the best of our ability on the fly for sure.
No doubt, man. And I'm already going to take a turn. We didn't really prep for this or plan for it, but I've spent the last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago I was in San Antonio for HEB. This week I was in Austin for Whole Foods. And a positive note from both is these retailers really care about ReGen. I don't think I've even told you this yet, but our HEB buyer, we weren't presenting ReGen to HEB because we didn't think they would be super interested. But it's on our master SKU assortment, slide. And he's hey, tell me a little bit more about these ReGen SKUs. And he's considering bringing them in for some of their premium doors. So
hell yeah. Not
even pushing for it. There's interest. And from a retailer like HEB, I think that's really promising. It's a really great sign. So that's exciting to share. And Whole Foods, as we all know, has been one of the champions of ReGen for a long time. And their commitment continues. And there's some change ups there I think we might talk about later in the episode. But it's just encouraging to get out there, talk to some of these buyers and these people who have the ability to make change, and they're focused on this movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brother. It's really cool for us that you have that kind of seat at the table through your role at Kettle and Fire so that we can kind of have those very specific micro examples to inform the macro perspective that we try and bring. So I love to hear that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Let's talk about Whole Foods now. Why wait? What else do you have to share about what's going on there?
Yeah, so Kettle and Fire, we've got two different quote ReGen SKUs that we launched in 2021. And when we got these SKUs on shelf at Whole Foods, we had to go through their Whole Foods Regenerative Assessment Program, which basically was in lieu of certification, if you wanted to make a front of label claim for regenerative agriculture on pack, you had to go through this assessment to ensure that you're not greenwashing. These are legitimate and it's thorough. I won't say her name out loud, but the gal who runs that program is fantastic. She's got a ton of experience and she put us through the ringer as she should. And we came out on top. These are legitimately regenerative bone broths, but Whole Foods has decided to change that policy. They are now requiring a third-party certification if you want to make a front of label claim at Whole Foods. Originally, you had to have either ROC, Regenified, or land to market verification, or go through their assessment program. and you could have that front of label claim. Now they're saying you cannot have just the Whole Foods assessment, but they've added a greener world to their list of recognized certifications, and they're still having conversations with other certifier and verification agencies out there. So long story short, they're really trying to hold a high bar and have some integrity around regenerative, which is fantastic. It does present some unique challenges for brands who are in the position that Kettle and Fire is in, but we're taking it to heart and we're saying, okay, hey, like, let's see how the supply chains how the supply chains have changed in the last few years. And if there's enough certified supply out there to fulfill our needs on these SKUs. So it's a transition time for sure.
Yeah, super interesting. And you broke that down really well. Just one point of clarity for the listeners, that's just for front of pack claims, right? So you'll see
Correct.
A lot of brands still talk about regenerative on the side panel or the back, and you can still go through the Whole Foods market assessment for those claims. They're just now requiring certification from one of those 4 organizations that Kyle just mentioned for just front of pack claims. And, we still think having the assessment pathway for a on pack claim that isn't front of pack is essential and correct and good. So we definitely support what they're doing there. And, they've been really clear that they're going to continue to evaluate and kind of, mold those standards to whatever they think is best in class for the current kind of given time, which I think they continue to do that. And, they've done it in a transparent and public and kind of leading way, more so than any other retailer that we know of, I guess, at this point. So just appreciate their leadership there.
No doubt. Yeah, one of the challenges, and this is very specific to Kettle and Fire, is like there is regenerative supply out there, but they're different certifications.
Right.
We have yet to find a single, like all of our regenerative beef bones, that there's enough supply that has the one cert that we need. Whereas right now we could piece together like maybe rock, savory, and Regenified and EOV, but you can't have 3 different certs. So it's still very complex, and I still really appreciate what Whole Foods is trying to do, but it definitely creates some, what's the right word? I don't want to say friction, but some challenges for the brands who are in this position.
Yeah. I mean, and challenges for regenerative at large that are being highlighted by that are just this identity preservation issue that we're seeing across building a lot of these supply chains and products, and how that plays into, certification and also like product formulation / manufacturing, right? It's a challenge.
Totally. Also, I don't want to reveal too much, but I just want to commend Whole Foods again that like they're not saying you have to have this done in 30 days. They're giving us some timeline, some legitimate timeline that makes sense and holds us accountable, and all other brands in this position. So I appreciate the level of intentionality and foresight that went into this transition from their team. So that's really nice.
Oh yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, brother. I appreciate that. I think that's good learning for everybody. Should we talk about Expo?
A lot to talk about Expo. So yeah. AC's put together a really robust outline for us to discuss. So, kick us off, man. What's most important to you coming into Expo 2025?
Yeah, I'll do a really basic intro for those that aren't as in the industry as we are. Expo, Natural Products Expo West is the full name. It's the biggest trade show in natural and organic food every year. It's a huge event. It's at the Anaheim Convention Center every March. So it's the Super Bowl for CPG, or at least the type of CPG that we work in. So anyone is going to be there. Brands, retailers, service providers, press, influencers, and it's a trade, in trade focused event, but it is a very also important kind of influential consumer event. There are just a lot of general consumers there as well. So like I said earlier, it's a big deal. It's a lot of work for us and all the brands that we support, and all the brands that are doing, supporting regenerative in some capacity or selling regenerative products. So there's a big trade show where the brands exhibit. There's all these sessions. There's events. There's what else am I missing? Anything else?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Just in terms of size, it's 86,000 people, I think, were there last year. Some of these halls, when they open, are quite literally body to body. It is insane. I honestly don't know how it's not a fire hazard, how they allow this amount of people inside of these buildings. So yeah, for anybody who hasn't gone, it's absolute insanity. I think the hardest thing, everybody goes through their first expo, is try not to eat everything because you'll just wreck your stomach. There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite part about Expo is getting to connect with the people that we spend so much time maybe talking to virtually, and just seeing people in person and putting faces to names, shaking hands, giving hugs. It's
100%.
that's the best part for sure.
What do you think about the condensed format? So they've made a change where we used to have Climate Day as kind of like a totally separate thing on Monday, and then the show ran from Tuesday to Saturday, and now there is no Saturday. The show just runs from Tuesday to Friday, and Climate Day and Fresh Ideas are really the same day on Tuesday. I don't love that. I don't care about losing Saturday because I don't think I ever really did anything on Saturday. But I think Tuesday's going to be a thick day for our team, especially.
Yeah. I think theoretically, I like the shorter format. Part of what concerns me is, like I mentioned, the 86,000 people, and if we're going to jam that many more people into less days, like does that mean it's going to feel more crowded? Because if so, that is not going to be as much fun, candidly. So we'll see how what the byproduct is there. But theoretically, I think you're right. Saturday is like, man, you got to work Saturday at Expo. It's like such a drag. So I like the condensed format. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I'm kind of interested to see what the vibe's like on Friday night, because now no one has to work Saturday, and how many people are going to try and get out late Friday or just eat that extra hotel night and get lit up Friday night, or stay up real late or do something socially. I don't have anything planned yet, but hopefully there'll be people hanging around doing something. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, and these natural folks people, they party hard. They go hard. And actually, I just found out about I won't say the brand, but there's a brand who's putting on an after party, I think on Wednesday, and Third Eye Blind is going to be playing.
Wow.
Which I know, right? Harken back to my childhood 90s alternative days, but pretty stoked.
Are you going?
I'm going to go. Oh, yeah. I've seen Third Eye Blind, I think 4 or 5 times already, but they've put on such a great show.
Love that.
I'll be there.
Love that. Huge Third Eye Blind guy right here.
Huge Third Eye Blind guy. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, let's start with Tuesday. Let's just kind of take folks through the days and talk about what we're looking at. I mean, this conversation and some subsequent blog posts and other information we're going to put out is basically just, if you care about regenerative CPG and you want to know what's going on at Expo and what you should be looking out for, what we're looking out for, what we're attending, we want to just give you some color to that, via this information. So, like I said, Fresh Ideas and Climate Day are the same day on Tuesday. That's a lot. I'm moderating a panel at Climate Day. The ReGen Brands Coalition, our trade association, is exhibiting and has a booth at Climate Day during lunch and the resource fair. And then how many regenerative brands do we have exhibiting at Fresh Ideas? Let me pull that list up.
While you're pulling that up, I think there's 59 total brands supporting ReGen at the show. At the show.
Correct.
In total. But yeah, don't know about Fresh Ideas. I'm really just stalling for time here while you pull that up.
Yeah. So we are tracking 59 brands supporting ReGen Ag exhibiting at the show, as Kyle just said. And I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 brands of those 59 are presenting it in the Fresh Ideas tent. 6 of those 9 are coalition members. So love that. So we'll definitely be over in that tent checking out what they got going on. I know we have one brand that has totally rebranded. I will let people see which one that is when they show up in the tent and not spoil that for them. But should be fun. It's a fun group. And I think Fresh Ideas has been really cool the last few years to see, especially all the rock brands kind of in there together. There's been a lot of good rock density. So it's efficient for us when we want to see that crew. But I also kind of love how maybe if I'm a retailer, I'm getting a lot of those brands kind of together in one little pocket. So excited for that.
Totally agree. And there's power in numbers, right? So as a retailer, when you're walking through Fresh Ideas and you see, I don't know, maybe 20, 30-ish% being rock or supporting ReGen in some other capacity, it's like, wow, this is really a thing. This is actually happening. There's a lot of momentum here. So totally agree. And I love that there's the Fresh Ideas option, lower cost to entry, great way for people to get in and kind of exhibit and experience Expo for the first time without breaking the bank. So love that concept.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Fresh Ideas is going on. We'll obviously be through there on Tuesday. We wish all those brands good luck and a lot of success in there. Let's talk Climate Day. I mean, interested to get your perspective and how you would describe it, as someone that's been with a brand and maybe didn't used to go and now goes every year. What do you think about Climate Day just overall?
Yeah, when I first started going to Expo, I think it was 2012, and I did not want to spend any time in a seminar room. I didn't want to hear
Yeah.
people who were like the industry leaders trying to talk to me and teach me something. I was ignorant and naive and young. And I started going to these for the first time really when I started doing this regenerative work with you. And
Mm-hmm.
I got way more out of these talks, conversations, panels than I ever thought I could. And it's really fun, engaging, interesting to be in the room where you hear these leaders not just talking about their opinions, but conversing with others who might have a different opinion. And it's almost like, I don't want to say problem solving out loud because a lot of it's theoretical, and I don't want to say you never see any action take place, but they're interesting conversations is what I'll
Mm-hmm.
say. And I love that there's opportunity for the audience to ask questions. And there's some real like back and forth. AC's laughing because I may or may not ask challenging questions from time to time.
We both. Kyle and I's Climate Day evolution is when we first started doing this work together. We basically went to a couple of Climate Days in a row and asked like very hard gotcha questions to a couple of the panelists in some of the sessions, and not to be assholes, but like they were legit topics that. This is the entire reason why we created this platform and we've created a trade association. We've done all these things is because we have constituents and we have an agenda that we don't feel like has the proper representation in the industry. So it's just fun to see that we've gone from that to like now me moderating a session and us having a booth and that evolution. So sorry to cut you off.
No, I mean you're right, and I don't really intend for the questions to be gotcha, and really
Right.
like they're opportunities to build bridges. Sometimes
Right.
they will be taken as a gotcha, which is unfortunate, but
Mhm.
it's can plant based and regenerative work together was like one of the key questions I asked, and the plant based people were up in arms. They were not
Mhm.
stoked on that.
Mhm.
Long story short, Climate Day is great. And if you've
Great.
never been to Climate Day and you're planning to attend Expo West, like I really do think it's worth getting there earlier. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, clearly you care about this movement in some capacity. You can learn a lot. You can meet people who can benefit your cause in some capacity. Like it's a really good experience. So would highly encourage anybody who's quote Climate Day curious to go check it out.
Yeah, and just huge shout out to Courtney and Caitlin at the Climate Collaborative. I think their full team is like just the two of them. They're just awesome human beings. I know they work really, really hard, especially seeing what has gone into the session that I'm moderating. So those two humans do a lot for our industry. Probably that goes without the proper thanks and recognition, and they deserve our support. And I know how hard it is to organize events like this. So just shout out to them. Appreciate their efforts and. Yeah, please join us there if you're able to.
No doubt. AC, you alluded to your panel, which is taking place on Tuesday on Climate Day. It's the Strengthening the Case for Regenerative Agriculture, Emerging Opportunities in Nutrient Density, Consumer Engagement, and Biodiversity panel. That's a lot just to say in one sentence. So give us like without revealing all the cards, what are you planning to moderate, discuss, what sort of conversations are you expecting to have happen? What do you want to get out of that panel?
Yeah, no, it's good timing because we did the prep call this week, and then I just kind of finished the briefing document, the scoping document for what we'll talk about yesterday. So myself, I'm the moderator. We have Sherry Fry from Nielsen IQ. So I like to call Sherry the data queen. She's always got all the latest consumer trends and data. We have Carolyn Gahn from Applegate /Justin/Hormel. And I forget Carolyn's exact title, but it's like the head of mission or something like that. And she's in charge of their regenerative agriculture programs, and they made that giant commitment to ReGen. What was it? I can't remember off the top of my head. We can look it up. It's like 1,000,000 pounds or something of beef, of certified beef sourced.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah. She's great. They're doing some really cool stuff. Excited to share that with folks. And then we have Eric Smith from Audacious. And Audacious is basically the most notable, hottest, well-funded company trying to tackle this nutrient density testing data issue in our industry, and they just raised $8 million to do so. So excited to hear from Eric about what's going on with them. But really, really like this cool opportunity, I think, to talk about where the future of regenerative goes. And my opening comments are going to be centered around proof. Like what I'm thinking of using to tee up the session right now is regenerative agriculture is at a pivotal moment. We've seen it move from an idealistic concept to something that's now discussed in corporate boardrooms and showing up on thousands of products. But we're at a crossroads. Will regenerative agriculture become a true market force with clear consumer demand, or will it be another feel-good sustainability trend that gets diluted into marketing copy? That's the question we're here to answer. To truly scale regenerative agriculture, we need proof proof that consumers want it, proof that it delivers real environmental and nutritional benefits, and proof that brands can justify the investment. So that's really the framing that I have so far for the session. Hopefully that's something compelling and engaging that people want to chat about. Not to give too much away, but I'll just share a little bit about what I think each panelist is going to bring to the conversation. Carolyn's going to talk about Applegate strategy and really how it's shifted from individual product strategy when they launched the Do Good Dog to now like sourcing certified regenerative beef across their entire product portfolio, and why they've made that determination and how they're activating that. They're doing some really cool stuff, and they're making some investments in studies and other research that I'll leave for the session itself that I think are really cool pieces to hear about and learn from, if I'm a retailer or another brand. Sherry's going to share some data about what we think like the current state of both product claims are and consumer awareness and demand. As we've talked about ad nausea on this show, like that is still somewhat of a black box, and that data set is very limited and or not available and or very expensive. So excited for Sherry to pull some stuff out that she can share there. And really my question for Sherry that I want her to dive into in the panel is going to be, if we've agreed that we can't attach ReGen to these altruistic benefits, and that's not a leading consumer driver, what are the other trends that ReGen is aligned with that we could like latch onto? Like this high protein thing, the clean label thing, like the granola MAHA moms that now want food dyes and additives removed. Like what are the trends that are very aligned or overlapping with ReGen that we should have our eyes on and be kind of attaching ourselves to? And then with Eric, it's really about what does their data say so far? Like what have they found in the distributions that they're tracking? He's going to share some interesting things about the fact that they're coupling the data with certifications, because that's an easy way to track it. So like it's like organic versus regenerative, or like versus conventional or non-GMO. I don't remember exactly all the different certs he named off, but he'll kind of break that down in the session. And then really asking him like, when is this thing going to be cheap and applicable enough for every regenerative supply chain to have a nutrient density set of data and have like a claim with a consumer? Because like that's the end goal that I think we're still really far away from. And that's the mechanism that we all believe is like actually going to transform this thing. So cool perspectives from the nutrition angle, the consumer angle, and then the brand angle. And hopefully this dumb guy talking right now isn't going to screw it up.
I think you do a great job. I mean, even the way you just laid that out, it makes a lot of sense. It sounds to me like a highly stimulating conversation that will take place. And just to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit on like the importance of nutrient density and the tremendous scope of work to do what needs to be done. You know, if you think about food in general, right? Let's say you want to have nutrient density testing for like regenerative versus organic versus non-GMO versus conventional in every single sector. You not only have to have that for like fresh, think about like produce and apples, right? Then you need to do it also for applesauce that have been processed, and like every single like way you can produce food might have a different outcome. So it's an extraordinary scope of work. And to your point, one that has to be done if we are going to link regenerative agriculture to nutrient density. So kudos to the audacious team for raising some money and working to solve that problem, because it's critically important. And I'm really excited to hear more about what they have to say, and excited to see how more of this research, what pops out, what we learn.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's my session. There's other cool sessions going on at Climate Day. I'll flag a couple and we can chat about them real quick. Let me pull my other doc up here. There's a disrupting carbon intensive commodity models session, supporting farmer well-being and nature positive outcomes through direct sourcing, transparency, and multi-year commitments. Simple Mills is talking at that. Luke Peterson from A-Frame Farm that you guys have heard about on the show that a few brands source from is on that. And then Jane Kuhn from Once Upon a Farm, who I don't know is on that. Super interested to hear from the brands and from Luke about kind of how they've built some of these partnerships and supply chains. And I think Luke's been talked about a lot, but if they can get into the nuts and bolts of how they've worked with him, I think that would be really informative for other brands to try and create similar things like that. So excited for that one. There's also a policy opportunity session at the same time. That's a shit show right now with the new administration. So
well,
I'm kind of bummed.
The panel or the talk is not going to be a shit show.
Yeah, correct.
The current landscape is a shit show.
Yes, and I'm hopeful that it's Matthew Dillon from the OTA, Britt Lundgren from Stonyfield, Aria from Landcore, who I know well, TA Hawks from Monument Advocacy, I don't know, but those people are all very knowledgeable on what's going on from a policy perspective. And, I think we need to all continue to just be aware of what are risks of what's happening right now that we need to manage or mitigate, and then what are opportunities that we all should be working on individually or collectively.
Real quick, AC, I think it's worth mentioning. You're closer to this than I am. You've done a better job keeping track of what's happening here. But like very high level, like why is this so important right now? Like what has the administration done that has affected some of the policy opportunities or potential levers to move regenerative forward? Like what's the problem right now?
If I had to synthesize it as concisely as possible with my limited knowledge and understanding as a disclaimer, I would try and bifurcate it into what are people worried about or having problems with, and then what are people hopeful or optimistic about. So on the worried about having problems with, the federal funding freeze has really been a big issue for a lot of people. The Biden-Harris administration did Climate Smart Commodities, which was a $3 billion kind of grant program. There was over $100 million of organic market development grants handed out to a lot of the brands that we support and have featured. There was like $20 billion of conservation program funding in the Inflation Reduction Act. All that has been like stopped and then restarted and then stopped. And there's executive orders and there's challenges to it in court. And there's all these things where there's a lot of uncertainty, but those were signed contracts between the federal government and brands, nonprofits, certifiers, like people that, are doing this work. And people have been sharing about it on LinkedIn. It sounds like an absolute nightmare, but in certain cases it's like $10 million grant where they've hired 8 people and now they literally have to just lay them off tomorrow because the funding has stopped. And there's lots of examples like that. And what I can't gather from the news is what and when the clarity and the resolution looks like. So yeah, that's the biggest current issue. And then I think people are still hopeful and optimistic about RFK Jr. and MAHA. He has been approved and appointed as the HHS secretary. I think opponents or kind of people more on the negative side believe that he's going to be in a box when it comes to food and ag, that the Trump track record and agenda are not going to really let him create the kind of change that we're all hoping for. And other people think he's going to have a lot of influence and drive a lot of cool change at USDA and FDA. So who knows? I don't really know. I don't have an opinion because I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Because, I can't predict the future. But I think currently that's the biggest source of frustration / issues, and also the biggest source of optimism / potential hope. We'll see.
I super appreciate the recap. Worth, just additional source of information, via a friend of a friend who I won't name names, but people who happen to be close to RFK Jr., like there's increasing movements from a number of red states, Texas, Arkansas, I can't remember the others off the top of my head, who are looking to like kind of do what California had done before and ban like red dye 40 in their state. So that MAHA movement is real, and there are some actual policy things taking place right now, more at the state level, because the term I heard was like, now that RFK is in position, there is, quote, air cover for states to do some of these things that can drive some real change. Because if, I don't know, General Mills, I'm not trying to throw General Mills under the bus. Let me try to come up with somebody else like Nestle or Big Food X company has red dye 40 in product B. And Texas says you can't do this. Like they're obviously just going to remove that from all state supply, right? Because you can't really delineate between like, okay, we're only going to sell this to Texas and everybody else gets this. So long story short, these policy changes could actually have positive benefits for like the entire food supply chain, which is really, really cool and interesting to hear about. So just another anecdote there on like what some of these policy changes have done and how some of those repercussions are manifesting themselves in the industry.
Yeah, there was a really interesting conversation during the prep call for the panel where Sherry was talking about what they're seeing from like the MAHA influence. And the group talked about basically like overlapping the MAHA agenda with the Maslow hierarchy of needs and trying to set proper expectations around where regenerative agriculture falls on that. And it's at the very tippy top, right? Like at the bottom is removing food dyes, removing actually like toxic things from food. At the very tippy top is like, let's change the way we farm. Like the bottom is easier things to get done. It's more reformation than revolution. And so I am very hopeful, but I think it's important to kind of context set. ReGen's not where they're going to start. And ReGen's not going to be the most accessible and easy to accomplish thing. There's a lot of other things on the agenda that would be great and I think big wins and very related, but not necessarily directly like about ReGen.
Totally makes sense. And to use red dye 40 as another example, is that awesome for the food system? Hell yeah. Does that do anything for regenerative agriculture? Absolutely not. Right. So I think it's a great distinction.
Yeah. Word. A lot of policy stuff going on. I think we'd like to be able to be more informed about it if we had more time, and I'd love to be able to speak from a more educated capacity. I mean, I feel like we're doing enough to serve in the roles that we serve, but there's certainly a lot going on. And, I've never been in a position in my life where there's been more stuff happening and more contradictory reporting about said stuff. So it's hard to reconcile. And, the funding freeze is a perfect example. Like these are direct contracts with people that we know, love, and support that deserve the support. And it's a great way that previous administration has subsidized some of the people doing good. And it's like we are running to a fiscal cliff as a country, and we need to like stop spending. So how do you reconcile, like as an individual citizen, like, well, shit, I would love to achieve both of those things. So like, let's cut other things, but like, is that fair? So yeah, it's tough, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far down the political rabbit hole, but agree. Like, something has to change, and unfortunately, it feels like right now maybe it was more faster change than we had anticipated. That is having some unintended consequences, at least from our perspective. Maybe intended from others' perspective. I don't know, but hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, there's nothing else we can really do except for hope that things get back on track and they turn back on the funding for the programs that help. In particular for this audience and conversation, like the ReGen programs and the farmers and brands who are focusing on it, transitioning and improving our deindustrialized, decommoditized food system.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Yeah. And it's an interesting segue into spotlighting a couple more sessions because I had a really cool conversation with Ryan from Smoketown, who's been on before. If people have listened to that episode, he's speaking during the lightning round on Climate Day, which is lightning round, industry innovations and critical updates driving climate action. I think Lauren Tucker's also speaking about the Almond Project. And I want to say Tina Owens is speaking about her work at TIFFs. So I think 3 of the 4 folks are kind of ReGen focused. And maybe the 4th with the Land Banking Institute or group. I forget their name, but I don't remember exactly what they do. Anyway, Ryan and I were talking about, what he might speak about. And right now, with all this chaos in the world, like that is the opportunity. And I don't want to sell it as a good thing to minimize or support whatever harm is coming from what is currently happening in the world. I think we want to acknowledge that there probably is a lot of that, and we have deep empathy for those affected in whatever way. However, I think for us in our movement, like we have to recognize that when there's a bunch of energy, there's opportunity there. Right. And I think like the message he and I were like talking about trying to convey is like, this is game 7, right? Like these next 3.5 years is going to be really just formative, I think, for what happens in our country. No matter what opinions you have, like it's go time. Like now's not wait and see time. Now's not like inaction time. I don't know if I said that all very well, but yeah.
I mean, for those who are not super sports fans, game 7 is the last game. So there, you got to win best out of 7. And if it goes to 70, there is no other chance. There is no other opportunity. So that's what AC is trying to convey here is like, this is tumultuous. But to your point, like there's things are being shaken up. And if we can get our shit together, for lack of a better term, like there's an opportunity to really make some headway in a positive direction.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And there's just like strange bedfellows. There's like weird new alliances. The political landscape is just being really shook up, and that's going to create new issues and also new opportunities. So we'll see what happens.
And let's just say, like, this is important to call out. Like, health should not be politicized.
Yes.
This is not like,
yes,
whether it's MAHA or whatever you want to call it. Like, climate smart ag, regenerative ag, human health, nutrient density, those should not be political. I don't know. There's a term I'm looking for that's totally escaping me, but it should not be a right or a left issue. This is a human health issue. This is an every American issue. This is a citizen of the world issue. And to your point, if things are being shaken up this crazily, I really can't think of a more uniting topic or initiative to focus on than like, let's restore human health and get people healthy again and stop destroying our planet, which unfortunately, like, that term alone has already become politicized.
Right.
And we've talked about it before, how it's harder and harder to deny that like climate change is happening. But yeah, if we can, I don't need to talk about it anymore. It's just, this is a huge opportunity. So hopefully we can take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well said, man. That was a good way to end that. To wrap up Climate Day, then we'll move on. The only session that I think we have flagged that we haven't talked about is tariffs, trade wars, and funding freezes, and navigating climate action in this new era. We obviously just talked about a lot of the macroeconomic circumstance around that. I believe Kyle at Wildway is speaking during that session, and I want to say he's the lone kind of ReGen representative there. But shout out to him. Excited to see what he brings to that panel, and excited for that. That's kind of like their closing panel where they have CEOs chat. So that's always a good one for Climate Day.
Yeah, I'm always excited to hear what Kyle has to say. I think of the two quote ReGen Kyles, he's the more eloquent of he and I, no doubt. He's also like, he's got fantastic financial analysis. I think he went to school for something finance related.
He was an accountant, I think he has an accounting degree.
Yeah, and he just, I really value like what he shares on LinkedIn, what he has to say. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, let me make sure there's no one else we should shout out. I'm pulling that up right now. Andrew Burke from Lotus Foods, who's the new CEO. We have not talked to Andrew before, but he's great, I'm sure, and excited to hear from him. And then Rihanna Lynn at Journey Foods. I'm not familiar with them and who that is or that brand, so I don't think there's a ReGen connection there. Tuesday's going to be a busy day, very clearly. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have all the halls open versus kind of the staggered approach of the previous years where it was just North Hall and then the main halls. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be interesting. Like we said earlier, 59 total brands that we track that are supporting ReGen Ag, 19 ReGen Brands Coalition members, 6 of them just presenting at Fresh Ideas. So we'll have plenty of booths to visit ourselves. And it was cool that I think in the 59, there's like around 20 that still haven't been on the pod. So excited to connect with those folks and get them lined up for some episodes. So we'll be frantically walking the show floor, but to wrap the conversation around sessions and content, any other sessions standing out to you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that you're excited about, brother?
Yeah, there's a couple on Thursday that I think are going to be interesting. The first one is the future of retail. You did a really good job laying out like the ReGen focus sessions. And I think it's interesting to go to a non-ReGen focus session and see if ReGen can creep its way in. Yeah. I don't want to say that we're an echo chamber or a silo here because I think we're very tuned into the larger community, but it will also be interesting to see, like, does the future of retail include regenerative agriculture in some capacity, right? So that's going to be an interesting session to me. A lot of folks from Nielsen, IQ, and UNFI will be there. Obviously, two key components of like this industry and how it functions and operates. So that'll be very interesting. And then lastly, like the NEXTY awards ceremony and celebration. These NEXTY awards, for those who have not been to Expo before, really struggling, consider these like the Oscars of Expo West. Who's getting the awards for innovation, or I don't know what the other categories are. Clearly, I'm not a great Expo attendee or a NEXTY attendee, but it's really cool to see, in particular last year, like a ton of ReGen brands won awards. And it's a really good indicator of the momentum behind the movement. So it'll be interesting to see how, quote, ReGen brands are recognized at this year's NEXTYs.
100%. I'm pulling it up right now just to give folks some point of reference, but basically their individual product awards, I want to say there's around 30 categories. We just had it in the newsletter this week, so I just need to pull it up so I can read it off. Over 1,000 submissions were received this year, resulting in 161 total finalists across 34 categories. And we have 21 brands supporting regenerative agriculture that were nominated for an award, and then 13 products with an actual on-pack regenerative claim. Some of those products are new products, so we can't confirm that they for sure have an on-pack regenerative claim, so that there might actually be more than 13 that we would find out at the show or after, as those products start getting released, because some people nominate one of the products they have before it's like publicly available. So a slight drop off in the numbers there from previous year. So this year's 21 and 13. Previous year was 22 and 17. So not huge, but I'd like to see that 13 products with on-pack regen claims a little bit higher, because I think 5 of those are just for the certified regenerative category. So 5 of those are in one category. But continuing to see regen well represented there is a big deal. And shout out to the brands that, are nominated with a chance to win, especially those that are coalition members. I think Alex Ice Cream is the lone coalition member that has a finalist designation this year for their new Culture Cup mint chocolate chip cookie product, which is a really cool new innovation from them. Smaller portion size. It's like got probiotics in it. I think less sugar. But we got some stalwart regen brands or brands supporting regen in there, like Gaia Herbs, Lundberg, Lotus, Groundwork Coffee, Diestel, and some new ones and some cool ones that I think we're less familiar with or excited to see, like Stoked Oats, El Nacho. I keep trying to find the right person at Milkademia to talk about their regen stuff, because they have some romance copy on the back of most of their products. So NEXTYs are huge. We'll see who wins. Good luck to Alex and others that are friends of the program. And always a big deal, I think, in our industry to see what happens with that.
No doubt. Should be fun.
Other sessions and or like other things to flag. We have the Pitch Slam on Tuesday night. So back to Tuesday for just one quick second. We got two regenerative brands presenting at Pitch Slam, Susan at Recoup, and then Michael Ham from Wild Orchard Regenerative Teas. So excited to be there and cheer both of them on. I hope they both crush it. I think only one of them could win first place, but I hope we get a first and second place finish out of one or the other. And then I think Susan's also presenting at the NCN like pitch session, which is different. But good luck to both of them. Good luck to Susan with both of her opportunities. And looking forward to see how those go for those folks.
Heck yeah.
Last session, and then we can kind of move on from sessions. One thing that I am super interested, I don't know if you remember this, bro, but Brianna from Yogi Tea talked about that sustainable herbs initiative, which sounds like that's a really cool, like pre-competitive collaboration that a bunch of brands are engaging in, and they've actually accomplished like some really cool stuff. I've been looking for more information on that. There's actually a session about it on Friday. It looks like it's Jeff from Foment / the Climate Collaborative Community of Practice. Jeffrey's the man, Jeffrey Boss. And then Anne from the Sustainable Herbs Initiative, who I'm not familiar with or don't know, but I'm super excited to learn more about that. I think that could be super informative to some of the stuff we're thinking about doing or doing in the coalition.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, tea is one of those, like, to me, it's almost an under the radar category, like the potential impact that can have. And Yogi seems to be, I don't want to say leading the way, but huge contributors in helping spread regenerative herbs, and not just for themselves, but developing those supply chains for other companies. So just commend them and their efforts there. It's really, really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys want, if you're a listener and you want like a full download of all the sessions that we're interested in or have some sort of regenerative flavor or inclusion, we'll have that in, I don't know if we're going to do like a separate blog or the recap blog of this episode, but we'll have it somewhere in a blog along with that list of exhibitors and all that stuff as you walk into the show. That can be a resource.
AC, we've done a great job talking about the sessions, talking about Climate Day, talking about some of our brands, but there's something we haven't yet brought up, which is kind of a big deal. You've been working really hard putting this together. So tell us about something else that's happening at Expo West this year.
Yeah, I feel like I gained a newfound respect for all of our brand members and the brands that we talk about for how crazy it is to prepare to actually like do something, some sort of activation at Expo West. We've been working on something for the ReGen Brands Coalition for a few months now. And really excited to unveil it to the world. I'm trying to decide what I want to unveil and what I don't. We are launching what we're calling the iHeart ReGen campaign. So think of like a play on iHeart NYC or something like that, but cooler and better graphics and about regenerative brands and products. So we're going to have buttons and stickers and swag, and all of it will culminate in kind of a landing page about iHeart ReGen and about regenerative products being full of love and really taking a different kind of approach for the consumer messaging or just the messaging overall, and like moving away from that whole we're here to define regenerative to like we're here to market and create support for regenerative. First, real like collaborative campaign for our membership and for the trade association. So just excited to see what happens. There'll be little stand-up heart-shaped table like cards or signs at every booth. So if you do visit any of the brand booths, hit the QR code on those signs, sign up to kind of be an ally of ours via the form on the webpage, the landing page. We're just trying this to gauge what kind of interest there might be in an event like this, what kind of traffic a landing page like that would get, how we can grow our network of allies and partners and brand members. So really excited. I'm really excited. The graphics are super cool. The actual kind of activation details of how things are going to come to life at Expo are really cool. It's a super fun, scrappy grassroots kind of activation and campaign that I think can be effective and raise some good awareness. So long story short, at Expo, look out for everything iHeartRegen and engage with us. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, number one, amazing work on all of that thus far, you and the team. And I just want to double down on like the engage with us QR code ask. Like we are looking to get a tiny bit of information, basically like name, organization, email address, and then define who you are, whether you're a consumer, you're a retailer, and I think there's another bucket or two. But we are not planning to spam anybody with anything. We're looking to build regenerative allies and those who really want to be a part of this movement and potentially come up with some really cool collaborative ideas. So don't be afraid to like share an email address because we're not going to like throw you on a list, which at Expo West, that is like everybody's fear. Don't get my email address. So just want to preface that. We're not looking to spam or get money out of anybody. It's just really trying to build this movement from the ground up.
Amen. Yeah, I think it's like brand, retailer, press/media, consumer/influencer is one category, and then CPG service provider as well. I think it's like those 4 or 5, which are all critical. They're all critical to the success of our brand members. They're all critical to the success of our organization, and they're all critical to the success of regenerative products in the marketplace. So we feel like it's our responsibility to start making more of those connections, getting collaborative efforts built between all those constituents. And Kyle laid it out really well. Like, don't give us your business card. Don't send us an email. Go to the landing page, fill out the form. It's really quick. That really helps us. And that brings it all in kind of a uniform way, and excited to follow up with people that are interested.
Yeah. Super excited.
And if we're going to have an Expo recap episode and share kind of what happened and some of the findings and, the results. So stay tuned for that in a couple of weeks. We'll share that as well. I think that's it on Expo, brother. Anything else we're missing on the Expo front?
I think that covers Expo. We do want to talk about a cool Earth Day activation. Is now the time to unveil that, or do we want to wait till later?
Yeah, no, let's talk about that. Just a general like fun thing for the regenerative movement that we wanted to highlight and we're aware of. I don't know. I'm guessing most of our listeners or all of our listeners have seen at least one of the documentaries, Kiss the Ground and Common Ground, or maybe both. But they are both going to be streaming on Amazon Prime starting on Earth Day. And we'll drop a link in the show notes, but Big Picture Ranch, the producer of the films, actually is going to do like a watch party and a live Q&A with some of the celebrities and actors that were involved in the making of the docs. So anyone that's into ReGen, I think, understand a couple of things about that, like sharing that, boosting the numbers that those get performance-wise on Amazon Prime are critical to the movement success. Those have been really good tools for, I think, enlightening people, sharing the message, getting people to work in the space, getting people to buy more regenerative products, et cetera. So watch it at your house, send it around to other people. And just make people aware of that. We just wanted to spotlight that. Yeah.
And kudos to Big Picture Ranch and that whole team for, number one, putting together 2 amazing, compelling, beautiful documentaries. And number 2, sharing it for free with the world on Earth Day. Like that's really, really cool. So big shout out to that team.
Yeah. And I believe it's for sure like publicly confirmed at this point that there is a third coming, and I believe they're already working on it. And I think the title is Groundswell. So excited for the third of the trifecta of the trilogy. That'll be kind of the last one I think that they do about regenerative agriculture. I don't know when that will release, but hopefully these first 2 can kind of build some hype for that and make it just as successful as those 2 were, and even more so.
When you frame it as a trilogy, I immediately think of like Return of the Jedi. Like, what is the
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi story for ReGen in documentary?
Return of the
form?
soil, brother. Return of the soil.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got today, folks. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We are closing on episode 100, which is insane. I think this is episode 95.
Absolutely insane.
So just appreciate the support for all of you that we will see at Expo. Looking forward to a lot of hugs and a lot of hellos. And yeah, look out for the iHeartReGen campaign. Stay tuned for our post-show recap, and keep buying regenerative products.
This is typically where I redirect people to a website. There's no guest on today. So check out regen-brands.com if you want to learn more.
There you go.
But yeah, like AC said, appreciate all the listeners, everybody tuning in. Last year at Expo, it was really, really cool and fun to engage with people we don't know who are like, hey, man, we listened to the podcast, love this episode, and so on and so forth. So if you have any hesitation in doing that, do not. It is so cool and fun for us to get to engage with the listeners in person. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody at Expo.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, bro.
For transcripts, show notes, and more information on this episode, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, ReGen Brands, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, the ReGen Brands Weekly, and follow our ReGen Brands LinkedIn page to stay in the know on all the latest news, insights, and perspectives from the world of regenerative CPG. Thanks so much for tuning into the ReGen Brands podcast. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, your talent, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.